Tracy Harwood. So I've done a little bit of digging around and I've discovered
Ricky Grove. Fog comes in on little cat feet.
Phil Rice. This is the best film that I've seen all year and maybe ever.
Damien Valentine. Use the Machinima, Luke.
Hello and welcome to And Now for Something Completely Machinima, the podcast about machinima, virtual production, and related technologies. I'm here with my co-hosts. My name is Phil Rice. I'm here with my co-hosts Tracy Harwood, Ricky
Hello.
Grove, and Damien Valentine.
Hello.
Good to be with you guys again.
Yep.
So this week we're gonna kick off with a pick of mine, and I don't know if this would have caught my eye if it weren't for Ricky's let's call it obsession with Elden Ring.
Yeah.
He's been captivated by it for I want to say a year now.
Over a year.
And over a year. Very engrossing game, and we haven't seen a whole lot of what we would call machinima from that game. A lot of gameplay recordings, a lot of let's plays for sure, but this is one that I guess technically really isn't so much machinima either. But who cares? It's called Elden Ring. Monty Python, is that what the actual title is? Let me pull it up here. Sorry. Monty Python and the Elden Ring by The Escapist. And normally we tend to we like to focus our attention on independent creators, people like us. The Escapist is not really that. They're more of a they're more of a media organization that if I'm understanding it right, the main thing that they do is video game related content of different kinds, but they've got more budget and more staff and all that behind it. So I don't know who all was involved in the actual production of this, but essentially it's a blend of some live action footage from Monty Python and the Holy Grail with Elden Ring. And I just found it pretty hysterical. First of all, the production values are very good, and the chroma keying that they had to do, the keying out of these live action characters over the Elden Ring footage, it doesn't get any better than this. I mean, it's just perfect. I really admire that skill because I've tried to do stuff like that. This isn't keying out characters over a solid background. It's keying out characters over an actual background from a film made in, when was this made? The late 1970s? I mean, it's unbelievable. And they basically have woven together these iconic and silly scenes from that Monty Python movie and woven it together with actions in the that will be familiar to anyone who's played the Elden Ring game. And I just found it really well done. I think it's funny. It's definitely a nice tribute to anyone who's at all familiar with Monty Python is going to instantly recognize where these clips were pulled from. And I think the same is true for the Elden Ring stuff. That the scenes and the events that are shown there are ones that'll be familiar too. And I thought they wove it together really nicely. It's not too long, which is good because this could have easily been overdone. They kept it pretty short. It's about 4.5 minutes, I want to say. Is that right? It's short. So anyway, I really enjoyed it. It's a little bit of a silly pick, but what did you guys think?
I liked it. It is a little bit silly, but then again, that's what Monty Python is about, silly and weird humor. The scene that they're taking Elden Ring from is the first boss in the game, Margit the Fell, who is a big blowhard and he's just a very funny character. So the fact that they chose him to be there. The character that they're composite was very smart. It shows that they've played the game and they know it. But you're absolutely right about the compositing of it. The hardest thing in compositing to do is to match the lighting from one source to the next. And they did that just brilliantly in the game. And it's smart. It's funny. I hope that they're going to be doing more bits from Elden Ring, because Elden Ring has such a huge diversity of environments and characters, and it could really use this treatment from this sort of ironic and funny treatment. I liked it a lot. It was a lot of fun.
It kind of reminded me of those similar videos where they put I'm not familiar with the Office TV show that much, but they put him in Mass Effect, and then there's a similar one. I think it's Austin Powers in Mass Effect as well.
Oh,
And it kind of had it reminded me of those, but I think this is actually done better because this is just the right length. It's not too long so it gets annoying. It's not too short that you don't get the joke.
Yeah.
They've got it just right, and they've done the compositing, as you've already said, so well that it just works perfectly together. And obviously they can't change the lighting on the original live action footage, because obviously that was something they had no involvement with at all. And normally when you're compositing for your own film, you at least get an idea of where you want the lights to be. So they had to work with what was already there. And of course, late 70s video quality isn't going to be as great as you get from modern technology. So they have to
I
work
know,
around that as
right?
well.
I'd expect it would have been pretty washed out compared to the higher contrast of the game. Yeah.
Yeah,
there are tweaks you can do in compositing in terms of color, and also you can change the lighting a bit by adding a light in compositing, and then changing the contrast. So there are tweaks you can do to make it, and I suspect they did a little of that in order to make it. But one of the things that just really impressed me was their matching of action, so that when the Elden Ring character boss swung to hit them, they composited them in just the right way, so it looks like that they were being attacked or responding to him.
Yeah, that was
absolutely. And that scene when the knight from Monty Python is running up the stairs. He's charged in and he stabs a guy here and slashes a guy there, and they got the reactions just right. I'm not sure exactly how they did that, because you don't see any sign of the player character in Elden Ring.
Yes.
So I'm not sure exactly how they did that. It's very clever and
very clever.
It gave some nice immersion, I thought.
Yeah.
That's why I hope that they keep doing it, because there's so many interesting places in Elden Ring that they could have fun with.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it too, and I can appreciate from the technical side of it, putting those two videos together with the game, and of course just the humor of it. It works so well on both levels. So excellent choice.
Yeah, my comments are very similar actually, but actually what I will say is it's a collaboration with a guy called Eli Handel-B.Wav.
Sure.
And if you look at this guy's channel, Eli Handel-B's channel, this is his opus. What do you call it? This is the way he works.
Magnum opus, or no? This is his...
the way he operates, basically.
Okay.
His MO.
Modus vivendi, yes, his MO.
Whatever. I forget the words. It's one of those days. And basically, what he does is he integrates movie characters into the video games. And from what I understand, he's primarily using After Effects, something called Mocha Pro, and Pro, and Adobe Premiere. And if you have a look on this guy's channel, he's done one which is hilarious of John Wick in Resident Evil, and another
I'm going to watch that.
Yeah, and another one of Borat in Resident Evil, which is also absolutely
very
hilarious.
Good. Very good.
But like you guys said, I thought that the way that he did the storytelling and selected the scenes to put them into Elden Ring was just absolutely brilliant. And because of the interaction. But I did spot on the stairs there was one bit where the character was stabbing something and there was nothing there that was being stabbed that I could see. So there was a bit of a blip. But other than that, I thought it was brilliantly well done. God knows how long it takes to do these things, because I bet it takes a while.
But I don't know, when you get your compositing skills up, it's just the same process. It's just you have to adjust it for the particular scene. It isn't easy, that's for sure. But once you know what you're doing, you can go faster.
Well, to that point, super ironically, I was going to share this with you guys. Anyway, I found this week a how-to on Twitter, and I know this guy won't necessarily have used AI to do this, but this is an AI process with largely, from what I understand, free tools, including Adobe's Express, through which you can remove backgrounds, images. You can remove the background and then put anything AI generated into the background of this image, and literally do it in about 5 steps. Takes
Wow.
effectively about 10 minutes to do it. From what I understand, or what this guy's done, it's not film or animation as such, but it's brilliant the way he's done it. And I will share that with you. The guy that's done the how-to is a chap called Guy Parsons. But it's really, it looks great. It's got loads of likes on it, and people are just sort of posting stuff up, all
Excellent.
doing a similar kind of thing. So I imagine this isn't that difficult to do, particularly with new AI tools. But here's a question for you before we kind of move on. Monty Python, wasn't that some of the inspiration for the name of our podcast?
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Phil and I were kicking around stuff, and it just came to me from Monty Python because I rewatch episodes and from that series all the time.
So
actually, in the early days of the podcast, Tracy, when Ricky and I were batting around the idea, and we landed on this as the title, which when Ricky said it, I was like, yes, that's it. And so Ricky had this idea where let's try and put together some scenes, because in Monty Python, when they say, and now for something completely different, it's John Cleese in this dark suit sitting at a desk typically, but a lot of times they would place him in an unusual place. Like at one point, it looks like the desk is sitting in the middle of a moving stream of water, like in the outdoors. And so his idea was, let's for the promo for the podcast, let's try and put some of those together. But it just ended up being more trouble than it was worth, I think.
Yeah,
we never did end up pursuing those, because
too bad. That would have been fun.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's also super ironically, because what season are we now in?
4th season. We're in our 4th season.
My God, we've been doing this for how many years?
27?
We have officially
Well, it's a lot more than 4. That's what I was going to say. We've been talking to each other for donkey's years. It seems like a lifetime.
Yeah.
Well, this show has officially lasted longer than the original series of Star Trek, so we're doing well.
That's brilliant.
We've topped Star Trek. I'm very proud of us all. Really happy. And you know what? The best thing about it all is that the shows and the experience have just gotten better and better.
Completely agree, actually.
I agree.
Yeah, I enjoy coming here, chatting with you guys, and seeing what films you've chosen every month.
Oh, yeah. Completely exceeded my expectations, because as we started, I was sort of grouchily saying that I thought that there wasn't much machinima out there. Boy, was I wrong.
Big time you were wrong.
Yeah. In fact, there's so much machinima. We on the board, we use a sort of creation board for all of us to put our ideas and picks and everything. Tracy usually has 4 or 5 extra films that says, well, if you guys hadn't found one yet, here's some you can choose. So for all of the ones that we picked, there's probably 6 or 7 that are
helpful,
that we could have chosen as well.
Yeah, and some of them I roll over to the next month, but mostly I put them on the blog. So there's a stack load of films if you're ever short of content to watch, where I've put them up on the blog. And sometimes they really did. We really should talk about them, because some of them are just so good, but we just don't have space to talk about all the things that we're finding.
Yeah, well, the podcast would be too long, but we are going to have a special 100th episode, which I think falls on October 20th, in which we'll be sharing our thoughts about the podcast and reminiscing and highlighting things in a general discussion.
But Phil, you've got some other things for us this month, haven't you? This week?
Yeah, I thought we'd just take a couple moments to touch on some items. The game Starfield has launched to great acclaim.
Big acclaim,
Yeah.
My background.
Yeah, it's certainly not, you know, it's not a perfect game, but none of them are when they first come out. But if you've seen any of the footage from this game, it's just gorgeous. Just amazing environments and animations and settings. It's just so much detail. Really hats off to Bethesda Games for, I mean, this one's a real winner.
Yep.
And I think it's
And
one too that we ought to keep an eye on for Machinima. I think it's very well poised to be like the next big Machinima engine. I think
cool.
on the level of like a Grand Theft Auto kind of thing.
Wow.
Because let me see, I checked over at Nexus Mods, which is a place where, you know, they have mods for GTA and Red Dead Redemption and you know, all these different games that people make Machinima in. And 1 week after the game was released, there were 1,000 mods
Wow.
already at Nexus Mods.
And
Now,
this is
mind you, there are little tweaks to the UE and stuff like that, but still, some of them are modifying the way that the game behaves and all of that. And it's only a matter of time before somebody
Right.
puts together some kind of a free cam mod.
Otis INF,
And that's going to
probably.
really, yeah, that's going to really break things wide open. And
Yeah.
it's one of those game worlds like Red Dead Redemption, like Grand Theft Auto, that is so expansive that it really gets people's imaginations going in terms of, you know, side stories and other, you know, not just fan fiction, but also just it's an inspirational game environment is what the feedback is.
Yep.
So I think that that's a really fertile ground there that we should keep an eye on.
Yep.
This
Or
is
keep
without
our
the-
eyes open.
Yeah, this is without the mod tools that they're going to release early next year, which is going to allow modders to bring in their own content with the actual tools that they use to build the game.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
If they deliver on that, that's going to be just enormous. Yeah.
and if anyone's already thinking about wanting to try it now, one of the options built into the game, if you go into the options and an interface, you can there's a slider to turn the interface transparency. If you set it down to 0, the entire HUD disappears, so you don't have to worry
Wow.
about the health bar or anything else being in your shot. You can just turn it off, and then it's easy to turn it back on again when you want to play the game again.
That's very smart. Very smart. I've always wanted to have a slider for transparency for controls because sometimes they are distracting in some games.
Well, I
Yeah,
don't
and then
play the
there's
games.
mods to change the size of those controls as well. So for
Wow.
gameplay purposes, there's tons of mods already. And then yeah, for Machinima, there's stuff like that that's starting to creep into well, that's some of it's built right into the game. Just somebody was thinking about those things for
Fantastic.
nice screenshots or video capture, that kind of thing. So yeah, I think there's going to be some neat stuff to keep an eye on there.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tracy.
I was just going to say I've been following the release of it. So it was released 6th of September, as I understand it. 1,000 planets to explore, only 10% of which have life on it. But I tell you what impressed me, that there's that gorgeous scenery, and then the motion blur bit. Did you notice all of that when they were when the ships was moving?
Yeah.
I thought that was stunning level of detail. And then the other thing that I picked up on was that Todd Howard, I think he's the games director, was basically comparing it to Red Dead, and saying that what they were really after was trying to sort of develop a role-playing game that can kind of compare to Red Dead Redemption.
Wow.
Which I think,
Very smart.
looking what's going on is probably achieved that. And then of course all the hoopla around the modding, it's as I can sort of sit here and say it seems to be being badged as a modder's paradise, and that's not just for doing bits and pieces in the game, but also a strategy that they seem to have in the background of it for releasing expansion packs and specials and what have you. So it looks like it's a really interesting game that's being added to the arsenal for a lot of Machinima creators here, I think.
That's great. Well, I think, adding modding tools extends the life of the game because it allows people to customize the game in ways that they hadn't intended or imagined. And that's smart business on their
Very
part.
smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, very smart on Bethesda's part for sure.
It's worked for Skyrim. It's over 10 years old now, and it's still just maybe not quite as popular when it launched, but it's still very popular now. People just play it regularly,
Oh yeah.
and the modding community is a very healthy one.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So speaking of smart decisions, let's talk about what Unity did this month. Yeah. So if you haven't heard, Unity made some very surprising and drastic changes to the way that its licensing and monetization works. Not well embraced by people who work in Unity. It was a debacle. I mean, there's really no other way to put it. Now, they have since, after, I want to say a couple weeks went by at the most, of just absolute chaos. I mean, people saying this is the last thing I'm going to develop in Unity, and independent developers fleeing. They have walked those back. And in fact, they walked them back, I think, more than anybody expected they would. Like it was actually a very good move on their part. But was it too late? I don't know. The problem with it is it actually, well, it damaged their reputation, not just of them, but it's created some suspicion now of, gee, can we really trust and rely on Unreal Engine to not, Epic to not do the same thing at some point? And a lot of people are looking at the I think it's pronounced Godot engine, Godot.
Yeah.
Which is not built out in the same way as Unity yet, but that's because a lot of the build out of Unity was not Unity, it was its users, expanding the documentation and add-ons and things like that. So, and a lot of people have really, it's there's going to be some fallout from this. There already has been, I think, and it's a shame to see, because Unity was, I mean, it was right up there with Epic and Unreal Engine in terms of it's a platform, not so much for Machinima. I'm sure that there's some Machinima stuff being done, but mainly it was attractive to game developers for both 2D and 3D games.
Yeah. Yeah.
For years, they've built up all this goodwill, and now that's kind of been put in jeopardy a little bit. We'll have to kind of see how things shake down. There's an awful lot of games that you probably enjoy on Steam and other places that were built with Unity.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see how it
They're
goes.
going to have a hard time overcoming this, because there's been a slow decline of interest in that application, partially due to the rise of Unreal becoming so incredible and free,
Yes.
And developers flocking to it for virtual reality and all of that. So there was a decline, and then this event happens, which hurts them very much. I have a feeling they'll overcome it, but they won't be the same as they were before. And since they were in decline before, it's going to be iffy for them.
Yeah.
I look to see them possibly being sold in the near future.
That's really interesting. That is interesting. I mean, I was following this, obviously, of course. I could not believe what they did. But what made me smile was on my LinkedIn feed, I saw Unreal people, quite senior people, sharing links to consultancies who were saying that they have set up teams of folks to help people convert them from Unity to Unreal. I mean, if that isn't rubbing salt into the wound, I thought, should you really be sharing that? But they were. So they were obviously making hay, so to speak, whilst the sun was shining in the other direction. But actually, I saw the Q&A video, which I put on a Milan note so you could have a look at it, with Jason Wyman was interviewing Mark Whitten, I think he's the general manager. I have to say, it's probably one of the most cringeworthy interviews I've seen for really quite a long time.
Yeah.
I actually wonder how long this guy's going to stay in post. But probably worse than that is the CEO's what's been going on in the background there, because apparently he sold a number of shares just a few weeks before their original announcement.
Yeah.
And even though, there's some obvious
Man.
explanations about that happened, it's got loads of tongues
I didn't know
wagging.
that. That's
Yes.
terrible.
No, yeah, well, you see, a lot of this sort of stuff happens in an automatic way, and they don't necessarily have any say over when shares get sold and whatnot. So it's not perhaps the
But
story
it's going to
that,
raise some eyebrows for sure with the SEC and whatnot. Yeah.
well,
Absolutely.
eyebrows, conspiracy theories, and it's that sort of behavior really that spooked the market. So there's
That's
now,
too bad.
yeah, there's a lot of questions about whether this guy is actually a credible lead for the company.
That's why I was suggesting that the company might be sold.
Well, well, and because the other thing is, I don't think Unity will ever recover its position on the back of this. And one of the reasons why it will never now catch up the ground that it might have had for, closing the gap a little bit between them and Unreal, is the fact that it just doesn't have a Fortnite, which basically funds a lot of what Unreal does, because it's just one of the most phenomenally successful games. And of course they've no strategy for putting anything like that in place.
Right.
So I definitely think they're now, they've dropped the ball big time, I think.
Yeah. Well, Autodesk and Adobe are in the acquisitive mood right now. So there's a chance that if they can fit it into their family of games, or a family of assets, it might work in that way. But that's really bad. I'm really sorry to hear that, because Unity is excellent. It's always been excellent. And it's gotten better because of the user base. But if the user base starts to leave or is upset with them, they're in real trouble.
Yeah.
I even wonder if Apple might eye it for acquisition, simply
That's
because so much of their App Store games they were built on Unity. That's who was probably the largest user base affected by this, is developers who are selling their games on the App Store. So yeah, if Unity must be having some financial strain to even have considered a move like this. I mean, that's
although I think
what it is.
Across business in general, though, I think there's been a trend towards finding ways to boost profits. I mean, now there's my partner, my wife was telling me that airline travel has become impossible for the general fare, because they have made it so difficult, so hard, and they literally have made it harder, so people will pay the extra to get into the express lines.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think that's the case with other businesses who are working out. Netflix, I think, is working on some way where if you pay extra, you get no ads or something like that. But I think there are people sitting around trying to figure out ways to make extra money in the economic climate. But I've always thought that was a bit bogus, because sometimes the economic climate is not as bad as they think it is. They're sort of buying into the mood, the general mood, and the general ideas about what's going on with the economy. Whereas 2 years down the line, you find out that they've had the biggest profits in the history of their company.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
there's a big difference between nudge and push away, and I suspect Unity has crossed that line.
Yeah, I agree. Well, listen, I have a short little bit I'd like to share with you. I wanted to upgrade my graphics card because it was starting to sputter a little bit. It would go out. And of course, when you're playing Elden Ring, you can't have that. So I did some research and I came up with the AMD 7800 XT. It's a sub 500 graphics card. It's really strong and very powerful. And I usually do due diligence on this to check to make sure everything works. It's a very large card. My computer case is very large and roomy, so I knew it would fit. So I went ahead and bought it and brought it home and started to install it, put it in with my original system that I hand built a couple years ago, and it wouldn't work. wouldn't come on. And so I did some checking and I realized it's the battery, the power source. The power source for the AMDs is twice that of the NVIDIA GPUs, which is one of
Wow.
the downsides. I have a 550 watt power source in my computer and it wouldn't work with that. So I had to go get in my car, drive and get a 1000 watt power source, put that in, plugged it in, and bingo, it just went right on. But I have to say, this card is absolutely massive compared to my previous AMD card, which I had in there, which was like a 2-year-old card. It's like half the size. It is so tight, you barely have room to slip it in there. And for some reason, they put the power connectors on top of the graphics card instead of on the side, which means that the clearance that you have with the side of your case is like a quarter of an inch. So trying to work in that space was very, very difficult. But after about 3 hours of hair pulling, everything works fine and it's gorgeous. It's a great, great card. Updated drivers, beautiful, no problems whatsoever. But the lesson to be learned is to make sure you check essential things like power supply. How much does your new card draw? Because universally, any new card is going to have, is for the most part, is going to draw more power. And I didn't do that, so I had to scramble and pay an extra. So the card was like $449, and it cost me $150 for the power supply. So I ended up paying more because of the power supply. But that's just a little fun bit that I thought you guys might want to be interested in, especially you, Phil.
Well, that
Yeah,
means
they make power supplies 750, 850, and then 1000 as well. And so yeah, if you end up not needing quite as much as the 1000, there's other options too. But 150 is a good price for a 1000 watt card or power supply, Ricky. That's a good price. Yeah.
I think that basically means also that you can actually play Starfield, because looking at the description, doesn't that need an AMD?
It works fine on a NVIDIA card, but they've done something to, you get a bit of a bonus if you're using an AMD card.
Yeah, some game companies connect up with GPU manufacturers to offer a little bit of extra, but it's never a significant boost.
Yeah, that's my experience as well.
And but Bethesda actually announced that they're going to add the extra support for the NVIDIA cards in an upcoming patch, because it's been so highly requested. So
Interesting.
Yeah, there's a big user base for those RTX cards for sure. Yeah,
there's already a mod that does it as well. So
oh wow.
I think day 2 of it, someone figured out a mod to add the NVIDIA support.
All right, last thing I'll mention today is over the Labor Day weekend, I caught word of this kind of accidentally on Twitter, but there was a Sims, Machinima, and Animation convention. Now it's an all online thing, just like it reminded me a lot of the Expo, Ricky. It was a 3-day event. They had interviews and guest speakers, and it was all hosted live, streaming on YouTube, and those videos are now archived on their channel. And it's all, Sims 4 creators. And I got to tell you, I was blown away by, there were probably, I want to say the peak audience looked like it was about 100 to 150 people when it was peaked out. But the variety and quality of work being done by this sizable group of filmmakers that I'd never heard of, and it was fun. It was fantastic. Now, mind you, this is a significantly younger crowd than me. These are I think late teenagers and early 20s, mostly filmmakers. And so it's the content, a lot of the content seems to be emulating shows that would appeal to that younger demographic. So, shows like, what's the one on Netflix? It's not Roswell, it's Rosewood. I don't remember what it's called, but it basically is kind of a, for lack of a better word, and I don't say this in a denigrating way, but kind of a teen soap opera type thing for nighttime TV.
Right.
Dawson's Creek, that flavor, if you're familiar with any of that.
Right.
A lot of the plot lines and settings are, they're geared towards younger people, that makes a lot of sense. But the quality and the passion that these people have for what they're making, the attention to detail, and they're all amateur creators, just like people in our audience. It was really something, and there was a number of films and creators that they would show trailers for or clips from, and I thought, wow, this is quite good. A lot of the, when we've talked some about Sims Machinima in the past, it's when there's a very amateurish film made with it, they don't cut around the weaknesses of the animations and the little quirks and stuff that are particularly cartoony or jumpy. And these are people who have mastered that. So they're using a lot of custom content. There's a whole community around these filmmakers that just create custom content, clothing and hairstyles and actual Sims themselves. And they're using all of this stuff in their productions, so they don't look like something that you could make with the Sims 4 out of the box. A lot of the mods and the content packs, but particularly custom content, heavily used. And they are quick to credit the creators of those things. There were several times during the interviews where they would mention a particular character, and then they would be sure to mention the custom content creator that was involved with that. I found that I was just massive respect for that. Really, really a neat little community that they've got, and they're very serious about what they're doing. And at the closing of the third day, I missed the first day, but I attended both the second and third day. And at the closing of the third day, they were already planning for doing it again next year.
Oh, that's great.
Good.
So we
should do special coverage.
That helps. Yeah. I think we should. Absolutely.
We should do some coverage of that and find out more about the community, because that sounds great.
Yeah.
It does. And you know what, when I was looking at the link that you shared with us, Phil, this is the I think it's the second year they've done it, and it's taken months for them to put it together. I think they started promoting it in about February. So
gee, that sounds familiar.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of work has gone into this. I think
a lot of work.
Yeah.
A lot of the interviews and segments were pre-produced.
Yeah.
Which was very smart. You remember that we came to a point in the expo where the first year we tried to do everything live, and there was just so many points of failure that when we strategized, how can we make this a little smoother? Well, let's pre-produce this and that. And so it was a mix of live and pre-produced stuff, very smart. And the fact that they've gotten to that point on only their second year is really impressive.
Absolutely.
So and then streaming on YouTube was a great idea.
It definitely is. But the only thing I would say to them after the fact, now it's sort of up there as an archive, is to go back and put in some timestamps, so that you can kind of find what the panels are, because just trying to figure it all out, they'll know what the times are. But
yeah, hopefully they're doing that. They'll go back and put in those chapter markers that are helpful in YouTube.
Right.
I would definitely.
And frankly, another smart thing would be to extract particular interviews and post them as separate videos that are just that interview. Hopefully they're going to have time to do something like that, because that would help greatly. It's a long show. It was
3
several
days.
hours each day. Yeah.
That's great news, Phil.
Anyway,
Thanks
it was
for
a neat thing to find. Again, it was just one of those things that I don't know if I happened to be searching for Sims 4 related machinima on Twitter, and the algorithm just popped that up right in front of me from someone I didn't follow at the time and had never heard of, and caught word of it just in time. So yeah, and I'm very pleased. I was glad to be a part of that. I participated a little bit in the chat, and of course, nobody there knew that I was some old guy lurking. That probably would have creeped them out, but they were very friendly and welcoming, even though I'm not anybody that they know. So it was a neat experience, and it was nice to stumble upon a very tight knit yet not closed off community that's dedicated to the same stuff we love. So it was neat to see. So yeah, we'll make sure.
I
to include
find
some
it ironic that you are participating with chat with people who didn't know that you created probably the single most important Sims machinima
Yeah.
ever made.
Yeah, that's sweet
Yeah.
irony, isn't it?
And I did not mention that either. I felt like that
That's
would
why you're
really
so special, Phil.
make me a boomer, you know.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, I'm kind of important. I'm kind of a big deal. I don't know if you know. Do a Ron Burgundy on it, you know.
Right,
I'm
right.
kind of a big deal.
Well,
Yeah.
thanks,
No,
Phil. That's
well,
great.
quite frankly, the production value of every single clip that they showed, I would have been embarrassed to bring up Mail Roaster Medikit on that bar, honestly, is so much better.
Yeah.
So yeah, great stuff. All right, so that'll wrap up this episode. Thanks for joining us. And be sure to give us some feedback, comments or emails, or, you know, through our website. We'd love to hear from you about how we're doing.
Yep.
And have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.